The toy rocket crashed into Dr. Isabella Romano's coffee mug, sending lukewarm coffee cascading across her kitchen table and decades of physics research. She glanced at her 9-year-old daughter Lily, who stood sheepishly in the doorway, then at the still-spinning rocket on her now-soaked papers. "Mom, I can't make it fly straight," Lily said, pointing at the small rocket. "It keeps going sideways." Isabella picked up the toy, turning it over in her hands. It was a simple compressed air rocket, the kind you'd find in any toy store. But something about its erratic flight pattern triggered a memory from her quantum mechanics research at MIT. She'd been studying microfluctuations in particle acceleration, phenomena that seemed random but followed subtle patterns that looked remarkably similar to her daughter's wayward rocket. "Lily," she said slowly, "would you like to help Mommy with an experiment?" That afternoon in their garage-turned-laboratory, Isabella and Lily built increasingly complex versions of the toy rocket. Each failure revealed something new about the relationship between quantum fluctuations and conventional propulsion. By dinner time, Isabella had filled 3 whiteboards with equations that would have made her colleagues at the particle physics laboratory scratch their heads. Dr. Romano, her AI assistant, chimed, "The pattern you're describing shares a 97% similarity with an unclassified signal detected by the Deep Space Array last month." Isabella froze, marker hovering over the whiteboard. "Show me." The holographic display filled with data streams that made her heart race. The signal wasn't just similar, it was identical to the quantum signature she'd just calculated. Someone, or something, was already using this technology. Within hours, Isabella's discovery reached the highest levels of the Global Space Initiative. Within days, she found herself presenting to a room full of stern-faced officials and military personnel. And within weeks, humanity made its first official contact with the Helios Collective, an advanced civilization that had been watching Earth's technological progress with growing interest. The collective's representatives, crystalline beings that shifted colors as they spoke, seemed particularly intrigued by how Isabella had stumbled upon one of their fundamental technological principles through a child's toy. "Most species discover the quantum resonance effect through centuries of dedicated research," the lead representative, who called itself Azure Prime, commented. "You humans, you found it through play." Isabella couldn't tell if Azure Prime was impressed or disturbed. "Sometimes the most profound discoveries come from the simplest observations," she replied, thinking of Lily's rocket. The collective shared their knowledge of what they called conventional space travel technology, massive engines that bent space-time through controlled quantum resonance. Their ships were elegant, efficient, and exactly what you'd expect from an advanced civilization that had spent millennia perfecting space travel. But Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something obvious. The same way her daughter's toy rocket had revealed a new perspective on quantum mechanics, she suspected there was more to this technology than the collective realized. She found an unlikely ally in Marcus Washington, a retired engineer who had spent 40 years revolutionizing race car engines before an accident left him unable to work in traditional automotive engineering. When Isabella presented her findings at a public lecture, Marcus was the only one who asked questions about the technology's potential for acceleration rather than its space-traveling capabilities. "The way I see it," Marcus said during their first meeting, his eyes twinkling with the same excitement Isabella had seen in Lily's when they built rockets, "these aliens are so focused on making space travel efficient, they've forgotten about making it interesting." Isabella laughed, but Marcus was serious. "Look at the data again," he insisted, pulling up the collective's engine schematics. "Their quantum resonance field is perfectly stable because they think that's what they need. But what if we deliberately introduced controlled instability?" The implications hit Isabella like a bolt of lightning. The collective had spent thousands of years perfecting their technology, making it safer, more efficient, more predictable. But in doing so, they might have eliminated possibilities they never thought to explore. As the sun set outside her laboratory window, Isabella found herself doing something that would horrify the collective. She was redesigning their perfect engine to be deliberately imperfect. And with each modification, each carefully calculated flaw, new possibilities emerged. "Mom," Lily called from the doorway, holding another toy rocket. "I fixed it." "Well, kind of. It still doesn't fly straight, but now it does loop-de-loops." Isabella looked at her daughter's proud grin. then at Marcus's excited scribbles on the whiteboard, and finally at the holographic engine design floating between them. Sometimes, she realized, the best innovations come not from making something perfect, but from embracing its imperfections. Little did she know that this simple insight would soon turn the galaxy's understanding of quantum physics and space travel itself completely upside down. Marcus Washington's workshop looked more like a mad scientist's laboratory than a retired engineer's garage. Holographic engine schematics floated between vintage NASCAR trophies, while quantum field sensors shared shelf space with well-worn socket wrenches. In the center of it all stood the reason for the Helios Collective's latest diplomatic headache: a modified quantum resonance engine that absolutely should not work, but somehow did. "They're going to hate this," Isabella said, watching the engine's containment field flicker with colors that weren't supposed to exist in our dimension of space-time. She couldn't help but smile. "Hate is a strong word," Marcus replied, adjusting something that looked suspiciously like a carburetor attached to a quantum field generator. "They're going to be professionally concerned." His weathered hands moved with surprising grace among the delicate alien technology, making adjustments that would have made the Collective's engineers short-circuit. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of breakthrough and controversy. While the Collective's representatives were still congratulating themselves on successfully sharing their perfect engine design with humanity, Isabella and Marcus had been quietly rebuilding it from the ground up. Their first test had nearly caused an international incident. The modified engine didn't just bend space-time. It made it dance. The quantum field fluctuations that the Collective spent millennia stabilizing, they deliberately amplified. Where alien ships moved through space with elegant efficiency, their prototypes skipped across dimensional boundaries like a stone across a cosmic pond. "Ambassador," Azure Prime's hologram flickered with what Isabella had learned to recognize as extreme agitation. "Your species agreed to implement our technology according to established parameters." The ambassador, a veteran diplomat named James Chun, glanced at Isabella for help. She stepped forward, data tablet in hand. "Actually, Ambassador Prime, we agreed to study and build upon your technology. We've simply taken it in an unexpected direction." The hologram shifted through several colors not visible to the human eye. "Unexpected? You've introduced deliberate instabilities into a quantum resonance field. The calculations alone suggest this should tear apart the fabric of space-time." "Should," Marcus chimed in from his workbench, not looking up from his adjustments. "But it doesn't. Funny thing about space-time, it's more flexible than you'd think. Kind of like a good suspension system." That comment sent ripples of what could only be described as mathematical horror through the assembled alien representatives. But Isabella noticed something interesting. Not all of them seemed horrified. A younger-looking crystalline being at the back of the room was vibrating with what appeared to be poorly suppressed curiosity. The young alien, who introduced itself as Spark Seeker, approached Isabella after the formal meeting ended. "Your modifications," it whispered, color patterns shifting rapidly. "They shouldn't be possible. But could you explain exactly how you achieved the resonance cascade without causing dimensional collapse?" Before Isabella could answer, more alien scientists joined them, each trying to pretend they weren't intensely interested in humanity's reckless modifications. Marcus, seeing the gathering crowd, pulled up the holographic designs with a knowing smile. "See, your original design treats space-time like a highway," he explained, his years of explaining complex engineering to racing teams serving him well. "Nice, smooth, predictable. But we thought, what if we treated it more like a racetrack? Banking the quantum turns, adding some dimensional drift capability?" "Drift?" several aliens asked simultaneously. Lily, who had been quietly drawing in the corner, looked up. "Like in those old racing movies Grandpa Marcus shows me. When the car goes sideways but still goes forward really fast." The aliens struggled to process this concept. "You want spacecraft to go sideways through space-time?" "Among other things," Isabella said, pulling up the test data. "Our modifications don't just change how the engine moves through space, they change how it interacts with space itself. We can achieve accelerations your original design never contemplated, because we're not trying to fight the quantum fluctuations. We're riding them." The room erupted in a cascade of mathematical objections, theoretical concerns, and barely concealed excitement. The younger aliens, in particular, seemed unable to contain their fascination with this unorthodox approach. As the debate raged, a message arrived from the collective's High Council. They had been monitoring the situation, and they had reached a decision. The human modifications were deemed too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed to continue. With respect, Isabella addressed the council's holographic representatives. I don't think you understand what we're really doing here. This isn't just about making ships go faster or space travel more exciting. We're discovering new principles about how the universe works, precisely because we're willing to look at it differently. Different isn't always better, Azure Prime countered. Our technology represents millennia of refinement. And that's exactly the problem, Marcus said, standing up from his workbench. You've refined it so much, you've forgotten how to be creative with it. Sometimes you need to take a step backward to leap forward. The council was silent for a long moment. Finally, a new voice spoke up. One of the eldest members, whose crystalline form had grown clouded with age. Perhaps there is a way to evaluate the true potential of these modifications. A test, of sorts. Isabella felt a smile tugging at her lips. She knew that tone. It was the same one she used when she was about to propose something slightly crazy. What kind of test did you have in mind? The elder's form shimmered with what might have been amusement. Your species seems fond of competition. If you believe your modifications are truly superior, perhaps you should prove it. And that's how the first Interstellar Grand Prix was proposed, though nobody knew it yet. As the council members debated the details, Isabella caught Marcus grinning like he hadn't since his racing days. You know what this means, he whispered. That we're about to turn space travel into a sporting event? Better, Marcus replied, his eyes twinkling. We're about to teach the entire galaxy how to drift through space-time. The announcement of the Interstellar Grand Prix sent shockwaves through both human and alien communities. While the Helios Collective's High Council saw it as a way to demonstrate the superiority of their refined technology, humanity had other plans. In a warehouse converted into what they called the Quantum Garage, Isabella and Marcus were about to push the boundaries of physics even further. Pass me the quantum spanner, Marcus called from underneath what looked like a cross between a Formula One car and a space shuttle. The vehicle, dubbed Stardrift X, was their most ambitious project yet. Lily, now their unofficial assistant, handed him the tool while carefully balancing her tablet filled with calculations. The temporal stabilizers are showing some weird readings, she announced, squinting at the numbers. At 10 years old, she'd become surprisingly adept at spotting patterns in quantum field data. Isabella glanced at her daughter's tablet and frowned. That's not instability. That's a new resonance pattern. Marcus, I think we just accidentally invented something. The accident turned out to be revolutionary. While trying to enhance the engine's dimensional drift capabilities, they discovered what Marcus dubbed the quantum slingshot effect. By deliberately creating controlled quantum turbulence, their vehicle could essentially surf the waves of space-time itself. The news spread quickly through the human engineering community. Soon, their warehouse was filled with an unlikely mix of professionals, former NASCAR engineers, quantum physicists, video game designers, and even a few retired stunt drivers. Each brought their own perspective on how to push the boundaries of what was possible. You can't just add a quantum spoiler to the engine housing, argued Dr. Raj Patel, a theoretical physicist who'd abandoned his string theory research to join the project. The dimensional feedback would be catastrophic. That's exactly why it'll work, countered Jamie Rodriguez, a former race car designer. We're not trying to prevent dimensional feedback, we're trying to harness it. Think of it like aerodynamics, but for reality itself. The debates were intense, the failures spectacular, and the breakthroughs impossible to ignore. Each test run revealed new possibilities that the collective had never considered. While their ships moved through space with mathematical precision, the Stardrift X danced through dimensions with what could only be described as style. The collective's observers were particularly disturbed by what the human team called quantum tricks, maneuvers that seemed to defy the very laws of physics they were based on. The Mobius drift allowed the vehicle to flip through its own wake in space-time. The probability slide let it exist in multiple potential locations simultaneously before choosing the most advantageous path. This is not how quantum resonance technology is meant to be used, protested one of the collective's senior engineers, their crystalline form flickering with distress as they watched a test run. Maybe that's because you never asked how it wanted to be used, Lily replied innocently, earning a proud smile from her mother. The breakthrough that finally pushed the collective from concerned to alarmed came during a routine test flight. Isabella was at the controls, with Marcus monitoring the quantum field readings, when Lily noticed something in the data stream. "Mom, look at the temporal wake pattern. It's like when I make ripples in my chocolate milk." That childish observation led to the development of the time-wave surfing technique, a method of riding the ripples in space-time created by the ship's own passage. It wasn't just faster than conventional travel. It was more energy efficient, despite seeming chaotic to outside observers. The human team's innovations weren't just technical. They approached the whole concept of space travel differently. While the collective saw it as a solemn journey through the cosmos, humanity turned it into an art form. Each test pilot developed their own style, their own signature moves. Former street racer turned test pilot Zara Hassan became famous for executing what she called the quantum drift king maneuver, simultaneously sliding through 3 different dimensions while maintaining perfect control. The collective's engineers insisted it was impossible right up until she did it in front of their sensors. But with each new breakthrough came increased scrutiny from both human and alien authorities. The collective's High Council was particularly concerned about the long-term effects of such reckless manipulation of space-time. "You're treating the fundamental forces of the universe like a playground," Azure Prime accused during one particularly heated meeting. "Maybe that's exactly what they need," Isabella responded. "For millennia, you've tried to conquer these forces through rigid control. We're trying to work with them, to understand them on their own terms." Marcus, who had been quietly working on something in the corner, spoke up. "You know what the real difference is? You see the chaos in quantum mechanics as a problem to be solved. We see it as an opportunity to be explored." The warehouse fell silent as his words sank in. Even some of the younger collective members seemed to be considering this perspective. "Besides," Lily added, looking up from her homework, "isn't having fun while making discoveries better than being boring and safe all the time?" As if to punctuate her point, the Stardrift X chose that moment to emit a cascade of quantum particles that briefly caused everyone in the room to experience time at slightly different rates. The human engineers cheered. The collective observers vibrated in horror. And somewhere in the background, the future of space travel shifted ever so slightly toward the impossible. The stage was set for a competition that would either validate humanity's unconventional approach or prove the collective's concerns about their methods. Either way, the galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. A race that would redefine not just space travel, but the relationship between intelligent species and the very fabric of reality itself. The day of the Interstellar Grand Prix arrived with an energy that could be felt across multiple dimensions. The starting line, positioned in Earth's orbit, was packed with vessels from hundreds of alien civilizations who had come to witness what many were calling either the most innovative or most reckless event in galactic history. The race course itself was a testament to the merging of alien precision and human audacity. It wound through the solar system like a cosmic obstacle course, featuring slingshots around planets, quantum gates through asteroid fields, and what the human team had controversially dubbed dimensional drift zones, areas where the fabric of space-time was intentionally destabilized. In the final preparation bay aboard the orbital station, Isabella made last-minute adjustments to the Stardrift X while Marcus ran through the pre-race checklist with their pilot, Zara Hassan. The vehicle had evolved significantly since its first tests, now resembling a cross between a solar sail, a supersonic jet, and something out of a fever dream. "Remember," Marcus said to Zara, "the quantum field harmonics are most stable when you're most unstable. It's like dancing," Zara finished, adjusting her neural interface helmet. "The more you fight the rhythm, the more you stumble." The former street racer had proven to be the perfect pilot for their unconventional craft, her instincts for finding the edge of control matching perfectly with the Stardrift X's unique capabilities. The collective's racing team, led by Azure Prime, had brought their own vehicle, the Equilibrium. It was everything their original engine design stood for: perfect efficiency, absolute stability, and complete predictability. Its crystalline structure seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, a stark contrast to the iridescent chaos of the Stardrift X. Last chance to withdraw, Azure Prime offered, approaching their bay. Our simulations show a 73.4% chance of catastrophic dimensional instability if you attempt your methods at racing speeds. Lily, who had been quietly working on her quantum physics homework, much to her regular teacher's confusion, looked up. Did your simulations account for fun as a variable? Before Azure Prime could process this question, the call came for all racers to take their positions. The starting grid was a sight unprecedented in galactic history. 20 vessels representing the most advanced civilizations in known space, each interpreting the basic principles of quantum resonance technology in their own way. The Arcturians had created a ship that phased in and out of reality like a quantum ghost. The Sirius Collective's vessel seemed to fold space around itself rather than move through it. But all eyes were on the radical human design and the collective's supposed perfection of the technology. As the quantum countdown began, Isabella gave Zara one last instruction through the comlink. Remember, they're trying to perfect their path through space-time. We're trying to dance with it. The race began with a flash of energy that temporarily warped the color spectrum visible from Earth. The equilibrium took an early lead, its perfect efficiency carrying it forward with mathematical precision. The other ships followed in a tight formation, each trying to find the optimal path through space. The Stardrift X, however, did something entirely unexpected. Instead of following the predicted optimal route, Zara initiated what they'd named the probability scatter, deliberately splitting the ship's quantum signature across multiple potential paths before choosing the most advantageous one. That's impossible, came the cry from multiple alien observers as their sensors tried to track the human vessel's trajectory. They're violating at least 3 laws of quantum mechanics. No, Isabella replied through the general comm channel, unable to keep the pride from her voice. We're just interpreting them differently. The race through the solar system became a study in contrasting philosophies. Where the equilibrium moved with perfect precision through the quantum gates, the Stardrift X seemed to surf through them on waves of probability. When other ships carefully navigated the asteroid field, Zara executed a series of dimensional drifts that had the human support crew cheering and alien physicists rewriting equations. But it was in the final stretch, approaching a gravitational slingshot around Jupiter, that humanity's approach proved its worth. While the equilibrium calculated the mathematically perfect trajectory, the Stardrift X did something that caused multiple alien scientists to temporarily lose consciousness. Zara engaged all quantum field manipulators simultaneously, initiating what they dubbed the Schrödinger shuffle. The ship appeared to exist in multiple states at once, surfing not just through space but through overlapping possibilities of space-time itself. They're going to tear reality apart, Azure Prime transmitted frantically. No, Marcus replied calmly, watching the quantum field readings. We're just showing reality how to dance. The maneuver paid off. The Stardrift X emerged from its quantum superposition ahead of the equilibrium, riding waves of space-time distortion like a cosmic surfer catching the perfect wave. As they crossed the finish line, the human crew celebrations were interrupted by urgent messages from multiple alien scientific institutions. They hadn't just won a race, they demonstrated an entirely new way of understanding and interacting with the fundamental forces of the universe. The human approach of treating quantum mechanics as a partner to dance with rather than a force to control had opened up possibilities that the galaxy's finest minds had never considered. As the celebrations continued, Isabella found Lily working on what appeared to be new equations. "What are you calculating, sweetie?" "Well," her daughter replied with a grin that reminded Isabella of Marcus. "If we can make space-time dance, I was wondering, could we teach it to sing?" The gathered aliens, already struggling to process the day's events, collectively decided that perhaps they weren't quite ready for humanity's next innovation. But as Isabella looked at her daughter's calculations, she couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the most profound discoveries came from simply asking, why not? The aftermath of the Interstellar Grand Prix reverberated through the galaxy in ways no one could have predicted. In the months following humanity's victory, the universe witnessed something even more remarkable than the race itself, a fundamental shift in how species approached technological innovation. The Quantum Garage, once a controversial facility that made alien scientists nervous, had become the galaxy's most unlikely diplomatic hub. Isabella found herself hosting beings from civilizations she hadn't even known existed, all eager to understand the human perspective on quantum mechanics. "But why would you intentionally introduce chaos into the system?" asked a gaseous entity from the Vega system, its form swirling with confusion. Marcus, who had taken to teaching what he called Quantum Hot Rodding 101, smiled as he adjusted a holographic display. "Because chaos isn't your enemy, it's just a different kind of order, one that's waiting for someone to learn its rhythm." The impact went far beyond racing. Civilizations that had spent millennia pursuing perfect stability began experimenting with controlled instability. The younger generation of the Helios Collective, led by Spark Seeker, started a movement they called quantum expressionism, combining art with physics in ways that made their elders' crystalline forms vibrate with anxiety. Even Azure Prime, their once staunchest critic, had begun to see the value in humanity's approach. "While I still maintain that your methods are unnecessarily dramatic," they admitted during a joint research session, "I cannot deny their effectiveness." The biggest surprise came from Lily, who had continued developing her idea about making space-time sing. Working with a team of musicians and quantum physicists, she discovered that certain quantum field configurations could create harmonics that resonated across dimensions. The result was something entirely new. Music that could be heard not just with ears, but with reality itself. "It's like a universal symphony," she explained to a group of stunned alien scientists, "where every particle is part of the orchestra." The Stardrift XS design influenced a new generation of spacecraft. While most civilizations weren't ready to fully embrace the human approach of quantum drifting through space-time, they began incorporating elements of controlled instability into their own vessels. The result was a renaissance in space travel technology. Isabella found herself reflecting on this transformation one evening, watching Earth's sunset from the Quantum Garage's observation deck. The sight of ships from various civilizations practicing new maneuvers in Earth's orbit, some still elegant and precise, others attempting their first tentative quantum tricks, filled her with a sense of accomplishment. "You know what the real breakthrough was?" Marcus said, joining her at the window. "It wasn't the technology. It was getting them to see that there's more than one way to dance with the universe." Zara, who had become something of a galaxy-wide celebrity after the race, had started a school for what she called quantum pilots. Her students included beings of all forms, crystalline, gaseous, energy-based, and even a few that existed primarily in other dimensions. "The key," she would tell them, "isn't to master the quantum field. It's to let it master you. Feel the flow of reality around you, then become part of that flow." The implications extended beyond transportation. Civilizations began applying the principles of controlled chaos and quantum harmonics to everything from energy production to environmental restoration. Problems that had seemed unsolvable under rigid, traditional approaches yielded to solutions that embraced a degree of uncertainty. One day, during a particularly bustling session at the Quantum Garage, a young alien student asked Isabella a question that made her pause. Why didn't any other species think to do this before? Before she could answer, Lily looked up from her newest project, something involving quantum harmonics and temporal loop dynamics that even Isabella was still trying to understand, because they were too busy trying to be right to try being creative. The wisdom in her daughter's words struck Isabella. Humanity's greatest contribution hadn't been the technology itself, but the willingness to approach the universe with a child's curiosity and an artist's creativity. They had shown the galaxy that innovation didn't always come from solving problems, but sometimes from playing with possibilities. As if to emphasize this point, a test flight of new quantum ships streaked past the observation window, their quantum wakes creating patterns in space-time that looked remarkably like a cosmic dance. Among them was the latest version of the Stardrift X, now piloted by a young Helios Collective member who had insisted on learning the human way. "You know," Marcus mused, watching the ships, "we never did figure out if we broke the laws of physics or just found new ones to play with." Isabella smiled, remembering the toy rocket that had started it all. Maybe the universe has been waiting for someone to break the rules all along. Not to cause chaos, but to show that there's always another way to solve a problem. As the sun set on another day of impossible breakthroughs and unexpected discoveries, Isabella watched her daughter working on her latest equations. The future stretched out before them like an endless racetrack, full of possibilities waiting to be explored. And somewhere in the quantum foam of space-time, reality itself seemed to be humming along with humanity's newest innovations, as if it had been waiting all along for someone to ask it to dance. In the end, the legacy of the Interstellar Grand Prix wasn't just about winning a race or proving a point. It was about showing the galaxy that sometimes the best way forward isn't the most obvious path, and that true innovation comes not from perfecting what we know, but from daring to imagine what could be. As Lily would say, with the wisdom that seemed to come naturally to children, the fun part isn't getting there first, it's finding new ways to make the journey amazing.